Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today, welcome back our friend Anthony Sassano for our monthly Ethereum and DeFi update. And I think every month we get here, and there's lots to talk about, but in the past few days, DeFi yield farming has just gone absolutely bonkers on Twitter. And you've got your little farming hat on now on Twitter as well, I see. But what's that been like for you, Anthony, to watch this all take off?
Yeah, it's just been incredible, really. It came out of kind of left field. The concept of getting yield through DeFi is not new. That's been around for a while. But stacking yields, yield farming, all this sort of stuff has now blown up, like because of we're going to talk about it, the compound liquidity mining launch. But it's gone way beyond Ethereum at this point. I know a lot of Bitcoiners that are now coming in because of this. People that weren't even looking at DeFi at all and thought it was a joke. They're just like, oh, maybe, there is something to this. So I think it's a turning point. I really do in Ethereum, in crypto, in the market in general. I think the market's pretty bullish right now. I'm feeling pretty
I think
bullish.
if you just zoom out, like for years, we've been saying things like DeFi and the yield is going to be attractive compared to bank accounts with zero or negative interest rates, and we've been joking about these apps and that'll bring people in. But you need a narrative, and that's what I think we've also said before. Like memes and narratives are very powerful, and it takes one Sunday afternoon yield farming and a few cartoons, and people are saying, "What, I can get 20%, 30%, 70% there," and that does come with risks, which we'll get into. But I completely agree that that's just whether it's wrapped Bitcoin and Bitcoin is coming in, like you just mentioned. I think that's a turning point.
Yeah, exactly. Field farming wasn't a thing a week ago, a week and a half ago, and it just completely entered the mainstream consciousness within crypto and has gone beyond. Like we spent years trying to meme like DeFi and Ethereum and everything, and then within a week and a half, more people have heard about it through yield farming than
And in
anything
the
else.
macro world, there's this saying, Tina, there is no alternative. And that's why people buy bonds with even negative yield. It's just because, well, the government's printing money, they might buy that bond off me. And all of a sudden, we've got this thing that's a completely different word. Oh, we're calling it yield farming, where you actually get yield because we're not in this other world, which is just crazy. Why would you buy a negative interest rate bond? Try explaining that to a yield farmer in crypto land. But I think it's awesome. So let's maybe get into it. Where do you want to start? Compound has been red hot lately with their comp token, and do you want to walk people through how that all works?
Yeah. Let's start with Compound since it is the biggest news, I guess, over the last month. So, yeah, Compound launched their token distribution kind of method last week for their comp token. This token's supposed to be used for governance. It's pretty much a governance-only token right now, but people are speculating that because of that, the governors or like the token holders will vote in like fees and things like that. So the token will accrue, real value over time through the Compound platform. So basically, the way the distribution mechanism works is that you can kind of farm these comp tokens by putting capital inside the Compound platform and borrowing as well. So you get 50% for lending, 50% for borrowing, and depending on how much money you put in is obviously how much comp you'll get. It's kind of like, I guess, mining or staking in general. Like with mining, you put up capital with miners and you get to mine coins, and staking you put up the capital with the coins and you get some coins like that. So that's very,
Yeah, I was
very
going to say for
similar.
people
Yeah.
at home, Compound is just a lending platform like the ones you've probably heard about. If I put in some Ethereum and Anthony borrows the Ethereum, we both get paid 50% of the comp rewards for that little transaction as a, I guess, thank you for using the protocol. But also they chose that as their way to distribute the tokens instead of an ICO. And that ran into an interesting problem because this is a new experimental way to how do you distribute tokens. And they had a little bit of a kind of sale or launch or liquidity bootstrap, whatever you want to call it. Was it on Uniswap? And then because there's not a lot of tokens, everyone wants to buy this and the price goes zoom.
Yeah, everyone's been looking at the token distribution. And I actually wrote about this as well, about how pretty much there were no tokens right on the market. There was this initial Uniswap pool. I think it was created with about 25,000 comp tokens, which was only 0.25% of the total supply on Uniswap. And this was created at a price of about $18 per comp. And then what happened was Uniswap markets created. There are bots out there from savvy individuals who've set up these bots to automatically buy these new tokens when they're created, because you have to actually look at the the contracts themselves. It's quite technical, and they bid it up to like $50 straight away because there just wasn't much supply there. And then of course it launched officially, and everyone kind of like, the FOMO kicks in, and we've seen what comp has done over the last week or so.
It's nuts. And I think then Coinbase announced that they're listing it. So FTX announced that they're listing it, and then we have futures. And I don't know if you saw this tweet I put out. It's like the actual the longer dated contracts had comp like $50 cheaper than $100 cheaper. So the market was telling you that this thing was going to fall, but people just like, it's rationality's out the window when these things get going. And did it touch $400? I mean, nuts.
Yeah, I think I saw on Coinbase it either 400 or over $400, but it didn't last, right? People, dumped right into that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
So guys, yeah, it's probably a good lesson that exciting protocol, exciting technology, you might use it every day, but that doesn't mean that this thing is worth $4 billion fully diluted, which would put it like top 5 coin. Keep that FOMO in check. But governance token, as you say, in the future, all those holders might vote to distribute a lot of those rewards to the actual token holders rather than the users. So if they have a lot of cash flow and revenue, maybe you can argue that it is going to be worth a lot of money in the future.
And that's exactly what people are speculating on, right? That's the same with any other governance token. It's basically, if it starts as a governance token, get in now, buy up enough so you can have a say, and then basically vote in these value accrual mechanisms.
We had a guest on the other day talking about the traditional stock market world, and he was saying that all these new tech stocks don't actually pay out any dividend or cash flow, and some of them aren't even a governance token. You don't have any rights or say, and yet people are paying huge earnings, or record multiples, sorry, for a share in something. I mean, people say that crypto is crazy, but the stock market is more crazy in a lot of ways. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think over the last few months, especially, the stock market has pretty much shown us that crypto is very mild in terms of craziness compared to what can happen there. And yeah, I'm fully with you where people, they speculate on things even though they have no fundamental value. I mean, if you look at the top 10 today, like, come on, like there's some things in it like Bitcoin SV, and stuff like that. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. So if those can be worth billions of dollars, why can't, tokens that actually have use and actually have platforms growing, why can't they be worth a lot too?
Right? And I mean, who knows where the top 10 is going to be in 12 months' time if DeFi starts to really pick up and some of these other chains. And I won't name names, but we've covered it in the news. There was a report out that like 90% of developers have left some of these other chains that are worth billions of dollars. So let's get into scaling, because this is something that has really excited me. And we touched on it in the last month episode, but even in the last 4 weeks, we've seen more of these projects come out. There was some great papers and research. I think you've touched on it in your stuff, but at least half a dozen different technologies that are all now on mainnet, either layer 1 or 2. And even like Reddit has put it to the community saying which one of these is best, because we know it's going to scale our project.
Yeah, the Reddit stuff's actually quite exciting. So, as you said, layer 2 has been heating up a lot lately. There's been a lot of releases and developments, a lot of tech going to mainnet. But yeah, Reddit basically came out this week and said, hey, budding Ethereum layer 2 developers, if you want us to use your technology, demo it to us, basically, and this is for their Reddit community points. We spoke about that on one of the episodes prior. This is basically to scale that. So there were a couple of projects that already put forward things like Fuel Labs that we've spoken about, put forward the Reddit Cache. Starkware also did their demo of how they onboarded, users onto the Ethereum mainnet. So the fact that Reddit comes out and says, let's do it officially, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, think about how many users Reddit has, and if they pick Ethereum as their platform of choice to do this on, it's a huge vote of confidence.
Compared to like 24 months ago, you could make the argument. Like we had little Aussie startup projects that we were talking to that said, hey, we've chosen to go with EOS because we need the throughput for these transactions at this point in time, and we're happy with this trade-off of 21 nodes or whatever it is. Whereas now you can say, well, hold on, we've got AmisiGo. They came out the other day. Maybe they put something forward as it to be Reddit to be a plasma sidechain, or we've spoken about Raiden the other day, or all these different ZK stuff. It's just awesome that you can say, well, take your pick, show us which one works, and it's all there, and it's happening now on Ethereum mainnet.
Yeah, exactly. And my argument was always, if you want to give up security for scale, why not just do it at layer two Ethereum? Why try and break into a new ecosystem when Ethereum already has the network effects? That's kind of always been my argument. And some of these layer two technologies are actually aiming to be just as secure as Ethereum layer one. So I don't see why developers are gonna choose a different chain over Ethereum, since Ethereum is where all the users are as well.
And the other big one was PayPal. So PayPal and Venmo, they're speculating on, and we saw some developer job ads put out yesterday. So I think it looks like PayPal, that news is true. They're going to integrate crypto. We've seen the Cash App and a lot of revenue that Jack Dorsey's thrown his weight behind, more so Bitcoin. But I just think that you can't get left behind, and it's this nobody wants to be first, and then all of a sudden it's like, what's your crypto strategy? And some of these surveys, it's like 70-80% of CEOs are saying they've got a blockchain strategy or a crypto strategy. And then you're looking at the Microsofts of the world, Ernst & Young's, they're integrating with the Ethereum public chain. So this is kind of these puzzle pieces slowly coming together.
Yeah, the enterprise world for Ethereum is actually quite big. You don't hear about it a lot because enterprise moves very slowly, of course, as compared to all the startups in the space. But there are, the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance that Consensus spun up like 3 years ago. They've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes with, as you said, Microsoft and Ernst & Young or EY. They brought out their privacy implementation called Nightfall a few months ago. And they're doing a lot more than that, though. They recently had a conference where they talked about all the stuff that they're doing. You can probably Google to find that. But yeah, so I think that people, shouldn't discount the fact that these big companies are using the public chain. They're just not being vocal about it yet because it takes time for them to get comfortable, and they have to do the official press releases and stuff like that. It's not like a startup where you announce things via Twitter, right?
Absolutely. I've seen how slow moving that world can be. My gosh, when we had a few meetings with like the government and whatever. Another one is it Baseline Protocol? They are again targeting enterprise. Is that privacy or scaling or a bit of both? What's that solution there?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, but I think they're mostly focused on the privacy stuff, because one big blocker for enterprises to get on the mainnet is privacy. You obviously don't want your competitors seeing what you're doing, or even like anyone in general seeing what you're doing, right? Especially with financial transactions. So Baseline Protocol is this initiative to basically get these enterprises comfortable with mainnet, get them onto mainnet, because they've already been playing around with it in secret or in private in their own organizations. So that's what, Baseline's trying to do. And I think, I don't know if they're officially affiliated with Consensus, but they're definitely working closely with them and with the enterprise clients that they have to bring them onto mainnet.
And I think the stablecoin world that's exploded as well. It's sort of like a natural that everyone's going to be using these for payments, that people are going to want to integrate with that world. And not only that, it's the central bank digital currencies or the government stable coins. It came out that the RBA, the Australian Central Bank, had been experimenting with a private or forked version of Ethereum. So it's pretty clear that this is where all the stable coins are. This is where it's the playground, I guess, for everyone from big to small.
Yeah, and the stablecoin kind of point is a good one to bring up, because liquidity begets liquidity in these systems, and it's just like a snowball effect. We've seen the rise of Tether and USDT on Ethereum, and it's very sticky. You can put it inside different apps. There's tons of network effects there, and it's very liquid as well. That was one of the top tokens that Compound used to bootstrap this comp mechanism. And there's been an explosion of stablecoins recently. From multi-collateral DAI that went live a few months ago, which was an upgraded version of DAI. USDC is still growing. Binance launched their own stablecoin. I mean, there's a lot of stablecoin projects, but there'll only be a few winners, I think.
I guess the next thing from that is the wrapped Bitcoin. So I actually think that stablecoins could like explode to this point where they kind of replace the banking system and the payment rails as well. If it's a better technology, why can't it win? But then the final step is for people to say, well, hold on, these are still pegged to a currency that's been printed by the trillions a week. Bitcoin is more scarce. Hopefully ETH's monetary policy is also really, really hard as well, and people are confident that ETH is money by that point, and that's where people start to see those as a store of values, whereas the stablecoin is just a method of payment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with the stable coins as they currently are, yes, they're tied to the US dollar and they're at the whims of what the US dollar does. But in the future, I can imagine stable coins being spun up that are tied to a basket of different kind of commodities and different currencies. And there might be a project that algorithmically weights those, and there's a lot of complex stuff you can do. But I feel like the future of stable coins is definitely going to head down that direction because the US dollar right now, what I'm seeing in obviously with what the Fed's doing and things like that, I don't really see much strength in the US dollar
No,
right now.
and it's crazy. There are these two theories about whether or not it's just because the world needs it because it's the world reserve currency, and are people going to turn away from that because they have too much privilege, versus are they printing way too many and people are going like, whoa, and the US dollar is going to lose its value. That's an interesting thought that you just had there. Do we have a basket of gold, silver, Bitcoin, and ETH, and they're four things that are the most scarce that we know of, or something like that? That's really, really cool. So we've actually seen these baskets come out. So we've got baskets of stable coins. PiDAO is a project. MStable is one you're actually an advisor for. So do you want to talk about how these kind of like baskety liquidity pools work?
Yeah, so there's been an explosion of these lately. As you mentioned, PiDAO and MStable, the project I'm involved with, and Curve Finance too. There's a bit of difference between them. What they typically do is they take the stable coins, put them in a basket, and then lend them out on different protocols. So you basically have a token that represents this basket. For MStable, it's called MUSD, which is a stable coin in itself. And it gives you, basically earns interest because you're earning interest on the underlying stable coins as well. This is the same with something like PiDAO. They released USD++, I think they call it. It's the same concept there. And Curve is the same concept. But there's a few differences. With Curve Finance, it's more of a Uniswap style model because you can swap these stable coins within the basket, right? This is how volume and liquidity comes to the basket is you swap them. You can, and then the fees are actually given to the people that are lending out or putting the liquidity as in the basket. So that's where the high yield comes from that you've been seeing the numbers flying around.
Let's maybe walk people through an example at home. So MStable is the stable coin and it has a basket of other stable coins behind it rather than just say $1 behind it. And that's because, well, let's say something goes wrong with Tether and it goes down to 95 cents. Well, you've got USDC behind it. Maybe you've got DAI behind it as well. So you've got a basket and it just sort of mitigates that risk a little bit in the volatility. But then if someone comes into the project and says, well, I actually want a lot of Tether, and they withdraw it, the fees start to change the incentive so that if someone deposits more Tether to top that up, they would get more of a reward. So it's all sort of those incentive mechanisms, isn't it?
Yeah, it's meant to be a self-balancing mechanism. MStable and Curve kind of differ from each other. Without getting too technical with it, the way MStable works is, as you said, it's a basket, and then people can swap the assets in this basket. So people will do this if, as you said, something loses its peg, because you can swap it 1 for 1. So say DAI is worth $1, but USDC is worth 95 cents.
Yeah.
Well, you can go and buy USDC for a discount, and that's where that kind of like self-balancing mechanism comes into it. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So it's a really cool concept, and yeah, as I said, there's a few projects doing it right now, and I'm really excited.
And this is a really important point now that we've got USDC, which is a highly regulated stablecoin, Tether that's a bit murky, and then say DAI, which people are a bit worried about its peg. Once you have these like a protocol that's saying, well, they're all worth $1, and you can start to arbitrage that away. And even if everyone mints these regulated stablecoins, as soon as you can go and swap it for Tether, it kind of lets that other ecosystem grow, and it all feeds on itself. And it's just the hugest inlet for money for the trillions that are being printed. We know there's trillions on the sidelines at the moment. I just think it's going to make its way into wherever you can get some good old yield farming.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at this stage, it's inevitable. It's just going to take time for people to be comfortable with these new systems. Like, me explaining it even on this episode is kind of hard for new people to understand, right? So you can imagine the people from the traditional finance world thinking, oh my God, like what's going on here?
But at the same time, we do have things already in existence that are, let's just say that we told my dad, say, download this app. if you want to earn 8% interest instead of your bank account, and he says, oh, okay, what do I have to do? And you literally just have to link your bank account and transfer money. And we don't want him to know what's happening on the back end. We just want him to know that he can trust and it's DeFi. That stuff's kind of happening, isn't it? So someone doesn't have to know all the technicalities.
Yeah. Slowly, we're getting platforms coming out like Dharma, if people have seen that, where they create like a beautiful, nice interface where it just links to your bank account or to like a debit card. Click a few buttons and you're earning this interest. But yeah, it's going to take time to build more of these kind of tools out to educate people as well. Because some people are obviously going to be skeptical. They're going to be like, okay, why can this platform offer me, 10%, but my bank can only give me 1%?
Which is healthy. And whenever you hear these things offered per month, it's a scam. Okay, so 10% a year as a general thumb is as good as it gets. Now, recently we've seen things like 70% in DeFi, but that comes with all these other risks like contract risk, liquidity risk, a lot of things, isn't it? Do you want to maybe talk about some of those other risks?
Yeah. So I guess the reason why the yields were so high with Compound and even with Curve is because they had these incentive programs with the token. So with Compound, most of the yield was coming from the comp token. So it was basically taking the value of the comp token in dollars and then calculating that's how you would calculate your return. So that in a way it's subsidized by the comp token. It's not like you're lending USD and you're getting 10% on that kind of USD from like a normal kind of lending and borrowing. It's like, okay, you're getting the 10% and then you're getting like an extra 60% from
you're getting
the
a $400 comp token, so the percent starts to look pretty good. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And this makes sense as well when we talk about the different flavors of wrapped Bitcoin. So how can we get Bitcoin in the Ethereum ecosystem? Now, some people are arguing that this is great because if you believe that Bitcoin is digital gold or a store of value, then it gives it more utility. So we've got Bitcoiners that are now sort of interested in this world for that reason. And then we've got these baskets and these liquidity pools happening as well. So I think it's good. Hopefully we can build that bridge and not be enemies and the maximalists. I don't know how they can say that this stuff isn't happening and it's good for the ecosystem.
At the end of the day, it doesn't even matter what our views are. This stuff's happening whether we like it or not. It's permissionless. No one can stop it from happening. And we've already seen about 80. Last time I checked, it was $85 million worth of Bitcoin has come into Ethereum, and that's about 5% of the total value locked in DeFi right now. So it's a healthy chunk, and that's only just started happening recently. We have wrapped Bitcoin, REN BTC, SBTC from Synthetix and stuff like that. So there's definitely hunger there. And with REN BTC, actually, they launched the REN VM, which lets you just trustlessly kind of bridge over from Bitcoin to Ethereum with your BTC. And they even launched a website for it, which is like called wbtc.cafe, which makes it super simple, right? You just like follow through the guide. It's basically as simple as doing like a Uniswap trade or something. And you have to wait a bit because Bitcoin blocks are slower. But once you're in the Ethereum ecosystem with your REN BTC or your WBTC, you can do whatever you want with it. And it's like any other asset on Ethereum.
I think I'll link to that down below. But I just think that this is, even Gavin Anderson, who's a Bitcoin OG, he tweeted last week or the week before saying Ethereum can scale Bitcoin. So once we get things like the atomic swaps and all the scaling solutions we've talked about today, we can go from Bitcoin into a wrapped Bitcoin. So it's on Ethereum. Then I can send it to Anthony wherever he is in the world for free and instantly. And you've scaled Bitcoin. And if he wants to get an original Bitcoin back to put on his ledger, he can take that off through the REN Cafe, the link and all these different websites. So it's very easy. It's doable today. It's just about building these front ends, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because like people argue about like is BTC coming to Ethereum a good thing or a bad thing or whatever. And you're right. Ethereum is scaling Bitcoin as the technical term is a side chain. Not to like, I guess I don't think people understand what side chain means. It doesn't devalue Ethereum as a platform. It doesn't say Ethereum is just a side chain because exchanges are side chains. What a side chain actually means is that it doesn't inherit the security of Bitcoin. So Ethereum doesn't inherit the security of Bitcoin, right? It's a separate system. So that's why it's considered a side chain instead of a layer 2 kind of implementation. But and then there's arguments people make that, if all the Bitcoin move over to Ethereum, then what is the Bitcoin blockchain going to be used for, right? How is it going to secure itself if no one's doing transactions on Bitcoin? And there's a real worry that obviously the fees won't make up for, to secure the chain as well.
Okay, that's interesting. I think at the moment, even with no fees, I think you could maybe argue that 2% inflation is still lower than fiat currencies, but that's a cool little game theory thought experiment right there. Anything else to talk about in terms of the different flavors of stablecoins and Bitcoin and everything that's happening on ETH at the moment? And we've got a long list to get through.
Yeah, we do. It's just been insane, right?
Okay, so let's keep going down this list. Synthetix and dYdX. We've got Opyn, Opium, and Hegic. So these are all platforms that are allowing you to do different styles of derivatives. So whether it's synthetic versions of gold or silver or the different indexes, even oil is now on Synthetix. And then you've got options and futures and perpetual futures, these different platforms that I've just named. So this is the world of finance and trading that's sort of gradually moving away from say BitMEX or even Wall Street. Eventually it's all going to be happening on Ethereum, but we obviously need this to scale. We don't want to wait 10 minutes on Bitcoin, I guess, but 2 minutes on Ethereum to trade one asset for another. We want this down to milliseconds with these layer 2 scaling solutions.
Yeah. There's a lot of these, as you said, like traditional finance, Wall Street type products that are kind of exotic and not something that regular people really play around with. But they're coming to Ethereum, right, in all these different platforms and giving people just more tools to speculate with, more tools to make sure that there's more efficiencies in crypto. Because in Ethereum and the tokens on top, and because there's a lot of inefficiencies between platforms. There's a lot of still pretty much everything is speculation. So if we can actually get those platforms live, like futures and options, options is a huge market. For those who know of the exchange Deribit, they're like a centralized exchange, but their options market has just taken off, right? So there's obviously heaps of demand for options, and seeing them on Ethereum is just really awesome.
What's ETH's market cap, like 30 billion, something like that? I think the open interest in just options on that one platform is $1 billion. So these are big numbers where people want to hedge their risk. And I think people are going to speculate because it's very cheap at the moment. So volatility is compressed. And for those that don't understand what's happening there, it means that the market is saying we don't expect a very big range at the moment. So the options get very cheap. So you might be able to buy an option or make a bet that Ethereum's over $400 in a year from now, and that might be very, very cheap and unlikely just because volatility is low. But I'm going to look at buying some ETH 400 calls after this maybe.
Yeah, exactly. The options stuff is once you wrap your head around it, it actually gets quite crazy. And there are people who make a living off just trading options, right? And they basically are able to hedge all their risk with options and other instruments so that they're not even if it moves against them, they take a little loss or like no loss at all sometimes, which is just
on
insane.
Wall Street it's a zero-sum game because of how perfectly priced and how quick everything is. But in the crypto world, there's huge arbitrage opportunities and just inefficiencies. So you might find that a futures contract is pricing in, say, Bitcoin at $1,000 higher in a month from now, but the option saying that that's going to happen is saying that it's super unlikely, and so you can buy one and sell the other, and you just wait a month where they have to meet, and there's easy money to be made. So this is probably something I need to cover more of because the ways you can do it and the liquidity now, it's very doable.
Yeah, this is when we get to I guess some of the most complex stuff that we see in like a financial system with these instruments. And as I said, regular people would never touch this kind of stuff. It's definitely not something that you should be doing unless you completely understand it, because you can get for lack of a better term, wrecked pretty easily.
Oh yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, it does involve derivatives and leverage. So hopefully education, we can teach people how to do it safely. Another one that, tying off the back of Ethereum being good money is the Ethereum Improvement Proposal 1559. Now, this is the one that says that we might burn the fees, and so that's going to actually reduce the amount of Ethereum in circulation or the new ETH. So that's going to make it more scarce than Bitcoin. So everyone got excited about the halving. Hopefully, within a year or so, ETH's going to be more scarce in terms of the new supply. So that stock to flow tweet and chart I've put out a few times makes a very strong argument that Ethereum is undervalued once we have this proposal. So do you want to talk us through where this proposal is at?
Yeah. So there's a regular call going on right now. So the way these proposals work is that they'll go through the kind of process of getting put into Ethereum. So the governance process, just like with Bitcoin has a similar process. And EIP stands for Ethereum Improvement Proposal. So you would propose this, and then you'd have to basically get community support behind it, get like the core developers support, and then the clients as well to build out this software. Now, the implementers call for EIP 1559 is basically doing both technical and economic analysis on this kind of like mechanism to make sure that it's safe, make sure that it does what we want it to do. And you put it nicely, it's going to be burning a bit of ETH, but what it also does, and I guess like the bigger benefit is that it's going to fix the fee market. So the goal of it is basically to make it so that the fees on Ethereum are a lot more predictable, because the gas fees have been really high lately. They're unpredictable. You might put like a transaction through at one fee, but then the fees will spike and you'll get put to the back of the queue. So this mechanism is trying to solve that. And then the bonus is that we get to burn a little bit of ETH with every single transaction. And to me, at the moment, a lot of the projects on Ethereum are kind of like free riding, if you know what I mean. And then with the fee burning, it actually becomes a symbiotic relationship where you pay your dues to the Ethereum network by reducing the ETH supply.
Actually, no, that's a good way to think about it. I haven't thought about it that way before. The other thing there that I want to get to was not only that, but once we move to ETH 2.0 and the staking, think about Tezos that had 80% of its coins locked up to stake and bake, and that's like the only utility really at this stage because you don't have a lot of dApps. So people get very excited about staking and earning that yield, good old yield of farming again. But once we've got burning of fees, think about the BNB token burn and how everyone gets real G'd up about that. We'll start to have these charts showing, more ETH got burnt this week, and that's just going to be great for reducing the supply.
Yeah. Over time, the more the Ethereum network grows, the more fees that are paid. Within ETH2, we could really see a world within the next few years where ETH is actually negative issuance. So even though that with ETH2, the issuance is going to be kind of like perpetual, paid out to the stakers, in that there's no cap, we could actually see that fall below zero because the burning offsets that new issuance.
So people are saying, or the trolls or the non-believers say, Ethereum has an unlimited supply, so it's not a good money or store of value. And you say, well, yes, inflation might be 1%, 2%, or 3%, depending on how many stakers we have and how much rewards we have to pay out. But we might have so much use case that fees are burning 2, 3, 4, 5% of the tokens, and you get like a deflationary currency that's getting more scarce, let alone just having low inflation. I think that is just when things get really exciting, and that is just not being priced in by the market at all. Like if that was a bond with known qualities, everyone would be trying to buy it at the moment.
Yeah, and I think like even on the percentages there, we'll probably see like max and absolute max 1% issuance, right? And that's on the higher end of things within ETH2. And then fee, if we grow the network more, there's more people using it, there's more fees being paid. Say there's like tens of millions of dollars of fees being paid a day. That's a lot of ETH being burned. Not all of the fee will be burned, but some of it will be. And then we can get that down to 0% or less. And that's something that I like to say to people, because that's something Bitcoin can't do. Like Bitcoin, yes, has a cap and eventually will be 0%, but it can't be negative unless they introduce fee burning, which, it's very hard to do that in Bitcoin.
I think the Bitcoiners would argue that they have the halving every 4 years, and maybe lost coins and things like that happen as well. But that does happen on ETH. Recently, we saw the ETH chain reach its record daily activity in a number of metrics, I believe, and we had the miners increase the gas limit. So this is something we explained in a previous episode, but basically the miners can all signal and agree to say, let's increase the block size to 1.5 megabytes from 1. And that means the blockchain they've got to download is a bit bigger, but they've had to do that because of how much is happening. And some of that is scams, but some of that is just more activity, which is great, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is something that doesn't exist in like most other networks, or pretty much all the other networks I know of, where the miners don't have the ability to kind of change. I guess it is effectively the block size, or what we call the gas limit in Ethereum. So yeah, the miners started voting it up. I think it settled at about 12 million, up from 10 million. So we got an extra 20% throughput on the network. But we also made the chain grow 20% faster because the blocks are fuller. But I guess the main concern that people have when miners do this is what's called I mean, this is getting technical, but what's called the increase in uncool rate. And what this is, it basically means that the network becomes unstable because it takes too long for the blocks to kind of spread around the world, right? Spread around the network.
I think my understanding of this is an uncool block is similar in Bitcoin, where you have these blocks that they need to propagate and talk to everyone else. But as they get bigger and bigger, then more people are still working and trying to download the last one by the time they get the message about the new one. And this is where you run into the issues that we spoke about with Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Satoshi's vision that's talking about, a terabyte block. How on earth all these nodes are meant to download a terabyte and then try and work out what the next one is in 10 minutes is just almost impossible.
Exactly. That's a very, great explanation about it. And within Ethereum, obviously the blocks are a lot faster. They're every 15 seconds instead of 10 minutes. But the block size isn't, 1 megabyte every 15 seconds. But as you keep increasing it does increase the uncle rate. But at the moment, actually, we haven't seen the uncle rate increase from this increase because there are ways to optimize the clients to make sure that they actually more efficient as well. So there are ways to fix
and
this.
Is that, and to make it better. I mean, I'm just thinking this out aloud here. Is the efficiency saying things like, I know Anthony's node and I trust Anthony's node, so if he's got the right one, I'm not going to try and solve that myself? Or are they the sort of things that nodes do?
Well, I'm not this is really technical, so I'm not an expert on this. But from my understanding, it's basically you make the clients more efficient all around so that they can download the blocks faster and actually process the blocks faster as well.
It's way over my head. I'm just guessing. But anything else to touch on, Anthony? I've covered a lot of the stuff I had. I know Link got integrated with some Chinese government project and it's gone up to $5. It continues to be integrated into a lot of projects as the price feed. So do you like Link? Do you think it doesn't need a token? Where does that one sit in your opinion?
Look, in my day job, I work with the Chainlink team from time to time because we use their oracles. They're an awesome team, really great. Always have good interactions with them. I think the community is pretty funny, with all the memes and everything like that. But I haven't, I don't think it's like a scam or anything like some people are calling it or stuff like that. I think they're doing some really great work in the Oracle space. They do a lot of partnerships, of course. There's a lot of noise whenever they do one because their community likes to drum it up because of the Link token price, right? It divides people for sure. Some people say it's the new XRP, and some people say it's not. It's it's revolutionary. I kind of sit in the neutral position where I'm like, I don't think it's a scam. I think they're doing good work, but I'm not going to go on Twitter and start opining on it every time they announce a partnership.
The Link Marines, isn't it? I really do. And if someone can help make it happen, I've been trying to get Sergey on for a while. And for me, it's just about drawing the clear utility. So if they keep getting all these partnerships, does that require the Chinese government to hold $100,000 of Link tokens and to lock them up and stake? If there's a clear path forward, then that's fine for me. But I just don't have that clear Link value utility in my mind yet. So that's just what I want to know.
Yeah, I haven't actually looked into their kind of token economics and how the Link token accrues fundamental value or anything like that. From my understanding, it's supposed to secure the entire network through some staking mechanisms and maybe accrue fees as well. But I haven't done a deep dive because I'm not invested in the Link token or whatever. Bad decision. I should have bought it a few months ago. But
100%. There were people in our group doing write-ups about Link in I'm pretty sure it was very early on, even 17 if it was out then. Anyway, it's one of those ones you just keep looking back on going, yep, I kept going higher and I kept missing out on it. That's just about everything I had on my list, I think, at the moment, mate. Anything you've got there to chat about?
I think we covered most of the things. There were a few other things that happened. I guess Uniswap V2 went live. Argent V1, their app went live. Balancer went live recently as well with their liquidity mining program that's similar to Compound, where you can earn their BAL token, which is also a governance token, at the moment that is causing waves. I don't know if you wanted to talk about any
I
of
think
that.
we've touched on the balancer, and people are familiar with like Compound and the Uniswaps where you can put tokens in and get a reward out. That's become a very popular mechanism at the moment, and people are kind of borrowing from one to lend to another, and this is where we get these Legos on top of each other.
Yeah, and I guess that's where like the term yield farming or yield hacking is coming from. It's like finding and exploiting all these opportunities on DeFi and kind of like sharing it with other people and making the most of it before it goes away, because it's not going to stay this lucrative forever, right?
I'm sure either you or your friends are going to be like building and arbitraging and botting this stuff, so I don't expect it to last very long.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the bots come along, and then you have whales that play games as well. It's it's definitely something that is really complicated, technical, full of risks. I don't really recommend new people to do this, like yield farming. Lend some stable coins, whatever, but don't do the complex stuff unless you completely understand.
And I
all
wouldn't
the
be
risks.
surprised to be sitting here next month or the one after, and like a Bitcoin whale or someone that doesn't like ETH and DeFi has come along, and like we saw with the BZX exploits a few months ago, they come along, they dump one market, they hit the price, and that has these flow-on effects. So guys, yeah, be careful out there.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these smart contracts haven't been around for a long time yet. There's the risk that they'll get hacked and drained. To me, it's a matter of time, because there's so much happening right now, and there's such big honeypots of assets, right? There's no way that all of these all of these contracts are like 100% secure. That would be a miracle.
Yeah, we saw Argent wallet, and there was another one this week that had a bug that got picked up. So, well, Anthony, it's always awesome. I love picking your brain. I hope you guys enjoy this. Let us know down below any news that we missed or things you want us to talk about in future. But wow, boy, oh boy, I'm so glad we started this series, because there's just so much happening, and we've got a big Ethereum documentary coming up. Hopefully Anthony's going to be in that as well. I'm speaking at the Binance conference and the Real Vision thing that they're doing on DeFi. So hopefully I'm trying to bridge the world between the smart developers and the techie world and the everyday people trying to understand this stuff. So I appreciate you helping my understanding of all this as well, Anthony.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. Like, I think we launched this series at exactly the right time, where a lot more new people are getting interested in Ethereum and DeFi now, and we're there to kind of keep them updated and help them along the way. And I think, yeah, bridging the two communities as well. Like, you've got a great community going. I always read through the comments. Like, people, really appreciate, what you do with not just these videos, but with all the other videos. So I think it's been a great initiative so far.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll put the link to our Gitcoin grant down below as well. If you can donate even just $1, that gets those contributions matched. So, yeah, and we'll talk to you again next month. So, cheers.